From a rough, violent childhood to selling sunglasses on the street just to make enough money to buy food for his family, NBA players all have very different journeys to getting where they are today. But to be able to come from absolutely nothing, struggling to survive at the bottom of the barrel, changing the game in one way or another, it's unfathomable. How's it going, folks? My name's Andy, and today let's take a look at how these NBA legends became who they are. Their journeys that shaped their personality and ambitions to seek further greatness. How did these guys overcome everything to push the game of basketball beyond its limits? Let's get started. Also, if you enjoyed the video, make sure to subscribe. If you like the content, drop a sub or a like, and thank you so much for the support. Allen Iverson. His mother was a mere 15-year-old teenager when she gave birth to him. His father was a huge influence on his life, introducing him to basketball as a child, but unfortunately, he wasn't a consistent presence in his life. He'd move in and out of jail and started distributing illegal drugs. In an article of his early childhood, here's how they described it. When his mother couldn't afford to pay the bills, the family would go without water, lights, and heat. A ruptured sewer line under the house filled it with a noxious smell, and would sometimes seep onto the floor. Iverson spent his childhood dreaming of making things better for his family, but everything around him pulled him back into the ghetto. During his youth, 8 of his friends were murdered, including his best friend. On top of all this tragedy, Iverson had a hard time focusing on school. Seeing his friends die like that, he didn't know what living a normal life was like. He too got sucked into it. Confrontations with his teachers, fights on the streets, theft and robbery, it was all too common. Slowly, his interest in basketball waned, as he preferred to play football in high school. That's what his friends were playing. But his mother had to continue encouraging him to play basketball, so he gave it another shot. She believed due to his short, slim stature, he won't have much of a chance in the NFL. Heck, even for basketball, it would be quite hard. That's when Iverson coined this process, the plan. At this point, Iverson's sole desire was to get his family out of the slums, and basketball was the ticket to freedom. He had an immense amount of natural talent, a feel for the game that most people his height and size do not have. Iverson's impact gave other smaller, slimmer guys hope. He was competing with the best of them, despite his stature. He inspired a ton of future NBA superstars. Guys like Derrick Rose, Russell Westbrook, Steph Curry, and Damian Lillard. They've all stated at one point Iverson was the guy they looked up to growing up. For a guy who physically was not a freak, didn't have ridiculous tools or measurements as others, it's shocking how much he accomplished despite having all the cards stacked against him. Dwayne Wade. Born and raised in the south side of Chicago, Wade's childhood was very volatile. Him and his family never had a permanent home growing up, partly because his parents divorced when he was 4 months old. The young D. Wade bounced around from place to place, moving around various parts of the city. But because Wade's mother was given custody of him, he had to stay with her. This was not ideal, as his mother did not have her life together. She was constantly using heroin, involved in a number of drug and gang activities, and their home was the subject of a massive police raid. She eventually ended up in prison. Fortunately, Wade's sister moved him to his father's house at the age of 8. At this point, Wade's father remarried and was doing a whole lot better than his mother. This changed the entire course of his life. Now with his father, Wade grew up in a much better neighborhood. He got to meet his new stepbrothers, along with new friends and new family members who were in the right state of mind and truly cared about him. It was here where Wade's love for basketball started, and today he credits his father for leading him down the right path. In his book, A Father First: How My Life Became Bigger Than Basketball, he stated, "My father stepped up. I'm successful today because my father stepped up." And he uses it as motivation to become the best father that he himself could become. Giannis Antetokounmpo. It's been a long time coming for Giannis. Despite being born in Greece as the son of Nigerian refugees, him and his brothers did not qualify for Greek citizenship. So for the first 18 years of his life, he had no official documentation. Not from Nigeria and not from Greece. People in Athens would look at him and his family in curiosity. Sadly, his parents struggled to find work, so him and his brothers helped out the finances by walking around the streets, selling sunglasses, watches, handbags, and other items too. However, even though these were difficult times, Giannis still had his family fully supporting him. That's better than what most kids hope for. They worked together to make this life in Greece as great as possible, despite the barriers preventing them from doing so. By 2007, he caught a stroke of luck. A local Greek basketball squad discovered him and figured, "Hey, you seem pretty tall and athletic. I think you'll be good at basketball." That's basically what they said. At this point, Giannis was 13 years old, a late bloomer who never had any interest in basketball previously. He barely even played it before. But almost immediately, you could see the potential was there. It wasn't easy. There were doubts that he had the right feel and instincts to play, despite his massive growth spurt in high school. Even after he got drafted to the NBA, everyone knew taking him was a huge gamble. Here we have a young innocent boy, just happy to be in a better situation, but even in the NBA, there were a lot of growing pains. Giannis clearly had the height and length to be successful, but he was a twig, arguably the lankiest guy in the league, especially at his height. It took years of intense training and a strict regime to help him bulk up to the monster we know today. And now, he's become the face of the NBA. Not only was this an incredible rise to stardom, but a great success story of a family who had nowhere to go. Getting drafted to the NBA not only made his dreams come true, but it probably saved his life and his family's life. Unfortunately, his father, Charles Antetokounmpo, wasn't around to see him win the championship, but I'm sure he would have been super proud of him, and all his brothers. Larry Bird. I don't think there's anything worse than seeing your own father take his own life, except for maybe watching your own children do it. When Bird was in high school, his father, a Korean War veteran, committed suicide. This introduced a tremendous amount of turmoil within Bird's own life, and his mental fortitude could not handle it. Additionally, his mother was raising 6 children by herself. Their family lived in poverty. Growing up poor has been the driving factor for his motivation for greatness. In a Sports Illustrated article from 1988, Bird recalled his days growing up. "I remember she worked 100 hours a week and made $100, and then went to the store and had to buy $120 worth of food. If there was a payment to the bank due and we needed shoes, she'd get the shoes, and then deal with them guys at the bank. The children always came first." When it got cold outside, there were so many nights where their old furnace broke down, filling the house with black smoke. The Bird family had to sleep outside, shivering in the freezing cold. Larry made it clear he never wanted to feel this way again. After his father's death, he used basketball as an escape. He needed to get his mind off of all the family troubles. His successful high school career led to multiple scholarship offers. Eventually, he found his way to Indiana State, quickly becoming the most prominent player in college basketball. It would carry over to the NBA too. Despite all this success, Bird still lives a humble life and goes back to his roots. Even during his playing career, every winter he'd shovel snow for his mother, and even helped her build a new driveway. This manual labor and just helping his family was something he always enjoyed doing, but it also severely hampered his physical condition later in his career. The back injuries he suffered by his late 20s can be attributed to him overworking. LeBron James. I don't think there's a single success story that's had more impact than LeBron's. As a child, he was raised by his mother and never knew who his father was. Him and his mom had to relocate to so many different homes, so many different apartments. Reportedly, in one single year, they moved 6 times. One time, LeBron told a story about his childhood, where he missed over 100 days in school in 4th grade. It was during those troubled years where LeBron had no hopes and no dreams of the future, just trying to survive until tomorrow. But it was later that year in 4th grade that ultimately made him realize he had to turn his life around. An article described his situation like this. His mom, 25-year-old Gloria, had recently quit a job at Payless Shoes, according to a friend. She was living on welfare. She liked to go out, friend said, and sometimes left LeBron to supervise himself. Often, he chose not to go to school, spending his days immersed in video games, shuttling between the apartment and a corner store where his mother's food stamps paid for his snacks. By then, James had already spent 2/3 of his life essentially without a home, moving every few months with Gloria from one apartment to the next. Sports, especially basketball and football, were LeBron's safe spaces. When his football coach offered him a place to stay, LeBron took it. He mentioned, "I'll never forget what the Walkers did for me, especially Frank. He doesn't get the recognition he deserves because he's real quiet. But he was the first one to give me a basketball, and the first one to show a real interest." This was the beginning of his basketball journey. He took off after that. From being a high school sensation to having his games broadcasted on ESPN, an unprecedented moment, to eventually becoming the first pick of the 2003 draft. The rest is history. Anyway, that's all, folks. Those were 5 NBA legends who came from absolutely nothing. Some of the toughest but worst stories we've ever seen, but they made it. I'm sure there's a lot more players I haven't talked about, but maybe that's another video for another day. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, I'll see you next time. Peace.